Farmer protests over crushing environmental programs have now reached over a dozen countries in the EU bloc. And as we reported in a previous episode, these protests have spread to the UK as well. For example, Welsh farmers have protested against their government's proposals, which included a strange set of requirements like farmers having to plant trees on 10% of their land and set aside yet another 10% of their land for wildlife habitat. What does that have to do with farming? Don't know. Anyway, about 100 tractors and farm vehicles participated in a Go Slow protest in Newton and Powys, and similar actions have taken place in other parts of Wales. The farmers are arguing that these requirements are impractical and probably stupid, and threaten their business and food production. The Welsh government, though, is insisting that these sustainable farming schemes have been developed jointly with farmers and is currently under consultation. Now, British farmers have also protested in Dover against foreign imports of food, claiming that cheaper imports are undercutting UK producers. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is expected to outline government plans to boost UK food security at the National Farmers Union annual conference. However, farming groups have expressed that more needs to be done to protect them from competition. Meanwhile, in the European Union, farmers have been protesting against EU agricultural policies for some time now. Among the things that they are upset about is the Green Deal, which aims to reduce the use of chemicals and greenhouse gas emissions. And the protests have now spread to Prague, where Czech farmers are blocking lanes downtown with hundreds of tractors to express their anger. Their primary focus is that the EU's environmental policies impose a tremendous financial burden and make their products more expensive compared to non-EU imports. And some farmers are even demanding that they withdraw from the Green Deal altogether. However, major Czech farming organizations didn't participate in this latest protest. Why, you might ask? Well, apparently there were claims that surfaced that some organizers were linked to pro-Russian demonstrations. So there's that. Now, the European Commission has made some minor concessions in attempting to bribe the farmers into ceasing their efforts, such as shelving plans for the time being to have pesticide use and exclude agriculture from a strict timeline for cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 90% before 2040. But this leaves the rest of the European Union citizens to face this 90% emissions cut. And among other things, these strange Orwellian rules will mean that the ability to purchase new petrol and diesel vehicles by the year 2035 will be gone. So no more gas vehicles, folks. What this will mean is that there's going to be a steep decline in the quality of life coming for the majority of citizens in the European Union. And the EU Commission won't forget the farmers forever. This bowing to pressure is only a stopgap measure as they retool and decide how better to break the farmers down in the future. In fact, I believe one of the primary reasons they are seeming to back down to pressure for now is because the EU is facing parliamentary elections in June. There is fear among these elites that the unrest from the citizens could trigger a shift in the political landscape which could potentially slow down their hungry desire to fully implement the Green Deal. These climate cultists that now infest the EU Commission are so intent at removing natural methane emissions that just a few years ago a study was commissioned. This was done by CE Delft for the Changing Markets Foundation, which highlighted what they felt was a need to eventually go after livestock numbers, particularly cattle. Their study suggested that persuading 10% of EU citizens to adopt diets with less meat and dairy could lead to a 34% reduction in methane emissions. It should be noted, though, that as of right now, the EU Parliament has voted to exclude cows from an industrial emissions cutting plan. Instead, there is a legislative approach to address the environmental impact of cattle without directly reducing cattle numbers. But again, this is just for now. I want you to consider this. Cows, sheep, and goats all produce methane through their digestive systems. This process is considered a significant source of methane emissions. And it doesn't just stop there. The production of food, particularly rice farming, contributes to methane emissions as well, like paddy rice cultivation, which creates conditions that are conducive to methane production by bacteria. And let us not forget human waste management. The breakdown or decay of organic material in the human waste stream is a significant source of methane emissions. The point here is this. Methane emissions is a natural function of life on this planet, But according to the climate zealots, this must be stamped out. Why do you think there's been such a push to eat bugs here recently? The idea is to condition humans away from eating meat so they can eventually slaughter and eradicate large portions of these animals to save the planet. And you can take this to the bank. Their proposals to dramatically cut fertilizer and pesticide use will make a comeback at some point. They'll find a way. And all of this will lead to a food shortage that may very well starve millions of people before all is said and done. Which, if you look at it from the perspective of a climate believer, they think it's a good thing. Because humans, after all, are bad for the environment, simply by existing. For example, research studies and environmental organizations have extensively documented supposed negative impacts of human activities on the environment. The claim here is that the human impact on our poor, helpless little Earth is dangerous, and we are affecting every aspect of the natural world and contributing to significant environmental challenges, which include climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Right now, the ideology behind climate change, formerly known as global warming, and before that, global cooling, is fundamentally a cult of death. You see, to save the world, you need to dramatically cull much of the human race. Now I hear some of you saying, well, how can this possibly be? Well, the concept of an optimal human population size has been an ongoing subject of considerable debate among scientists, economists, environmentalists for a very long time. The idea revolves around determining a population level that would allow for a sustainable balance between human needs and the Earth's resources, ensuring a decent quality of life for all who are left alive while preserving the planet's ecological systems. Let's look at Sir Dasgupta's analysis on the subject. You see, Sir Partha Dasgupta is a Cambridge University economist, and he suggests that the optimal human population might range from 500 million people to up to 5 billion. This range is based on a balance between human well-being and the ecological carrying capacity of the planet. His work emphasized the anthropocentric view, treating the biosphere primarily as a resource for human use. His analysis suggested that humanity is already significantly overpopulated relative to the global ecological carrying capacity, with an optimal sustainable global population estimated at 1.18 billion people. And there are many other voices like this. So of course the question is, how do you get there? That's always the problem, isn't it? The point is here, there seems to be a driving desire to cull the human population by those believers of climate change. This, of course, will never affect the elites in their seats of power. Of course it wouldn't. No, the death and decline of quality of life will all be handed down to people like you and I. The farmer protests have stumbled upon perhaps one of the most important moments in our lifetimes. The reality is, my friends, human beings as a species, our primary reason why we are the supreme creature on planet Earth is because we have the ability to adapt to our environment. It is our intelligence. We adapt regardless of what natural heating or cooling occurs. That's what we do as a species. Meanwhile, while we here in the West are fixated on greenhouse gases, China, on the other hand, is laughing all the way to the bank. You see, their greenhouse gas emissions have grown significantly, driven by strong economic growth and burgeoning energy demand. Between 2005 and 2019, China's emissions grew by 75%, while the EU reduced its emissions by 20%. And what is most amusing about all of this? President Xi Jinping has stated that China plans to promote an energy revolution and engage in global climate governance. But in reality, it's just a ploy to sell so-called clean energy to the gullible and stupid West. You see, China is investing significantly in developing clean energy technologies, envisioning itself as the global leader in the clean energy revolution. But this investment is not driven by carbon mitigation concerns. Nope, it is by the desire to become the indispensable global provider of these technologies to all the gullible Western democracies. They will reap financial and geopolitical benefits if they do this. I believe that we are at a tipping point here in the West. We are experiencing so much cultural and political rot. It's infested all Western democracies and representative republics like here in the US. The stagnation of the old guard that has ruled Europe, the UK, and here in America is finally catching up to us all. The only real question left is, will the future be one guided by the likes of China? Or will we right this ship? I suppose we're going to just have to wait and see what happens next. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. From the To Be Frank show, I am Adrian. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.